everyone to the August 13th, 2026 meeting of the Penfield Planning Board. Please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Michelle, please call the roll.
Certainly. Kanauer.
Kanauer here.
Aken.
Aken here.
Daly.
Daly here.
McCooey.
McCooey here.
Tydings.
Tydings here.
Sangster.
Sangster here.
Weishaar.
Weishaar here.
O'Connor.
O'Connor here.
Prinzing.
Prinzing here.
Ferrigno here.
Okay, we have next on the agenda the approval of minutes from July 9th, 2026. Any questions, additions? If not, anyone move to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes from last month.
I'll second.
Kanauer.
Kanauer, aye.
Aken.
Aken, aye.
Daly.
Daly, aye.
McCooey.
McCooey, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings aye.
Okay, again, welcome everyone. Sorry about the air conditioning, but the windows are open. Last month, the air conditioning was stuck on. Now we seem to have the opposite problem, so. Okay, so tonight we have one public hearing application and then 4 tabled applications that we will review after the public hearing, and there's one new business item. So with that, Doug, if you would please read
Do you want to do
the...
the tabled applications first and get those applicants on their way before the public hearing? I expect the public hearing to take a little
That
bit.
seems, yeah, that seems reasonable.
Okay.
So given that,
Start with tabled application number 1. Brian, do we have Bob on Zoom?
We do.
Okay. So first tabled application is 480 and 44 Plank Road. You may remember this is the proposed subdivision site plan and expansion to a conditional use permit to merge the 2 lots at 480 and 484 Plank Road into a single lot, into a building addition to the east side of the existing commercial gas station and C-store, and a new canopy fuel island dispenser, along with other site improvements. We do have both the owner and the engineer in the meeting with us. Since we last met, we had staff provided a couple comments to the board for clarification, both for you and the applicant. The applicant has provided responses. We can have them present that to you as well. So they have provided a new floor plan and rendering that updates based on what we had originally requested for additional sort of false windows on the building. The architecture of the building still proposed to remain similar to the existing C-store. We did ask them to clarify, since we do not have an elevation or rendering for the proposed gasoline canopy. Matt, if you could bring up Google Maps, the proposed canopy. They propose the canopy will be the same architecturally as the existing canopy minus the signage. So it'll be painted steel with stone knee wall and a shingled top to the canopy. They are not proposing to do any signage on it at this time. If they look to do signage, they will approach the zoning board for a special permit for signage at a later date. Additionally, the staff had noted that there was initially a quick service restaurant shown on the floor plan that was provided for the board. The applicant stated that is a pre-existing quick service restaurant. They had operated a pizzeria. They ceased operations temporarily, and they're looking to restart operations. All equipment's in good working order, and they propose just to restart that. It does not constitute an expansion to the conditional use permit because it is a pre-existing part of the approved conditional use permit. And then the last item was on the photometric plan. They did show that there was a potential for 1 to 2 foot candles at the property line. The applicant stated that they will revise the photometric plan to show no light spillage and will do whatever is necessary from directing the light, additional shielding to prevent light spillage onto the adjacent property. We do have the applicant in the audience if you have questions.
Okay, so from what you
Ken, if
said,
you want to come up, you can come up. And I think we have Bob. Bob's on Zoom.
okay.
Bob, can you hear us?
Directing the light, additional shielding to prevent light spillage onto the adjacent property.
Sorry, can you repeat that? It was a
The
little
audience,
quiet.
if you have questions.
You can take a seat if you'd like.
Yeah.
You don't have to stand. That way you can talk into the mics.
What you said, if you were to come up, you can come up.
Oh, that's you? Yeah.
And I think we have Bob's on Zoom. Okay.
Oh, apologies.
Bob, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. I swear.
Okay. Apologies, did not realize there was a delay. So Bob, I just wanted to check that you were here.
I don't know if I can hear you.
Can you hear us, Bob?
Up to the mics. What you said, if you were to come up, you can come up.
I can hear you okay.
Okay. Ken, if you'd like, you're more than welcome to speak on the application's behalf.
What would you like to know? The quick service restaurant is existing. We shut it down due to the fact that we didn't have storage. And we use that area now for storage because there was storage on the floor, which was a clutter, and I can't have it. So we shut it down. Now with the addition, we'll have the ability to have enough storage that all our supplies can be kept in back, and we can reopen the pizzeria.
The application.
Besides that, the canopy is going to be built exactly like the other canopy. And again, the signage is probably going to be another application, but it isn't necessary for the project to go on as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Is the stone on the canopy, is it going to look the same as the?
Everything's going to be built to match.
Okay, perfect.
And you're Ken?
I am
If you could, for the record, state your name and address.
Kenneth Malcho, 90 Knollwood Drive, Rochester,
Okay.
14618.
And as Doug had pointed out, the additional canopy will be the same construction or,
Absolutely.
okay,
Actually, the same contractor who built the existing one is going to build the other one.
and did you receive input regarding comments on landscaping and the architectural?
Well, the architectural is going to be built to match.
Right, okay,
So that should all be the same. And the landscaping is as drawn unless
okay,
is needed for sound or light. And the light would be the main reason. The addition is being put on the back of the existing building. So there's already landscaping on the whole perimeter. Between us and the funeral home, on the opposite side is a full wall of trees. And then there is some small bushes between the next building over, which we would like to keep nice and neat and clean. So I don't want to put in, evergreens or something like that, which is, I put in some neat hard trees.
okay.
Nothing which is too maintenance intense and more appealing.
Is there in the rendering, is this rendering where of the false windows?
Most of those false windows is storage room or
But
beer
this
cave.
is the back and those windows on this
Correct.
side are the false windows that we're looking at?
Right, the one to
Okay.
the left of the door would be a false window because there's a beer cave or storage.
Okay, but that's an
And-
actual entrance?
That is an
Real
actual,
doors
that's
and
going to be the actual
entrance,
entrance for the backside. Which I
Okay.
believe there's 20-something parking spots back there.
Got it.
Which frees up the whole front of the store and keeps the traffic flow well.
Thank you.
When you open up your pizza place again, are people going to utilize that door as opposed to the front door? Does it?
Yes, and inside that door to the right is seating.
Okay.
There, I think there's 6 or 8 booths. So, yeah, I would assume it's always easier. And the entrance is being pushed back from Plank Road. So it's going to be much easier for people to park bigger vehicles on that side.
Just got one question. Ken, weren't you putting a large refrigeration unit in the back someplace?
Well, there's
At
going
one
to be a
time?
beer cave, which if you slide down just a little bit, you'll see right there will be the door to the beer cave, and then that hallway where it goes down will go to a storage unit, and then another door will be going into the existing coolers. So everything can be filled from there. That there exactly is where the beer cave will be.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Quick question, perhaps Pete or town staff. With the expansion and the fact that they're going to continue, I presume, to operate 24/7,
Yes.
Pete, would they need to amend their conditional use permit or seek an amendment?
I don't remember what the status was. I
don't believe it was going to require, because that was granted as its own condition. The 24-hour operation was granted after the original conditional use permit. Since it's an existing part of the conditional use permit, we didn't see it as an expansion since it's not a change from previous. If they had not, or they had ceased operation as a 24-hour and we're coming back for 24-hour operation, it would require an expansion or a new conditional use permit for the hours of expansion of hours of operation. But since they currently operate 24/7 under an existing conditional use permit, the expansion doesn't require, it's an existing condition.
Got it. And I've seen the most recent, there's like a strip of buffering between the expansion and the property to the east. Is that the plan?
Yes. There is a strip there.
And at one point, I think it might have been with your prior engineer, talking about potentially land banking some of the parking spots. Is that still under consideration?
It really wasn't, just due to the fact of, we have a lot of landscapers come in and bigger vehicles, and to shorten their turning radius would just make it more difficult if we would do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
From a site perspective, engineering is satisfied. We did send out a PRC memo today. Everything was minor and technical in nature. It was updating little things in the engineer's report and that stuff that could be done pre-Mylar, post-approval pre-Mylar.
Okay, so if everyone's comfortable, it sounds like we can go ahead and move to have staff prepare Part 2 of the EAF.
Part 2, Part 3 AF and a negative declaration.
Okay,
Motion to do exactly that, prepare those. Part 2, EAF. Yep.
okay.
Tydings, second motion.
And then the motion to
But
approve.
you have to take a
We'll take a
vote.
vote. Yep,
It wasn't the motion including the resolution also
Yeah.
to prepare all the documents.
Yes.
We can prepare all the documents.
Kanauer,
Kanauer, aye.
Aken,
Aken, aye.
Daly,
Daly, aye.
McCooey,
McCooey, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
Okay.
And then the
All right.
motion to approve.
Thank you.
So we'll begin that. We'll be on the agenda for September 10th for adoption of the resolution. All right, tabled application number 2, 1801 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road. This is the preliminary and final for Lot 1 and preliminary for Lot 2, mixed-use development at 1801 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road. So staff has, at the board's request, staff has drafted a negative declaration for the board's review. We did provide a couple of comments for additional clarifications for the board, as well as questions for the applicant. Pull that up. So one question we did have was regarding generation of odors. The proposed use is a restaurant, so having the applicant address the proposed cooking methods for the restaurant, type of exhaust system, and/or other odor control measures that can be captured in the negative declaration or mitigated through some other means. We do have the applicant in the audience to answer those questions.
Okay.
The other question or item that was brought up is based on the board's traffic expert. There was a couple of comments that were made that staff has included for the board to take review, potentially add as mitigation measures, and add as future conditions for approval. The one was in future, in the opinion of the town engineering department, if a significant northbound left crash problem develops before access to the north occurs, because ultimately, as a condition of approval, this development will be required to connect further north when the northern property develops to have access directly adjacent Sweets Corners Road. But if prior to that occurring, there becomes an issue with crashes for left turns out of the development onto 250 heading north, that the planning board can potentially review in consultation with the town engineering department and the town's transportation experts, if restrictions to northbound lefts at certain times are warranted, whether that's requiring that the entrance is changed to a right and right out, or just placing signage that would restrict, from X time to Y time, no left turns. And then additionally, adding a comment that cross-access is core to the district and will be required for this property to adjacent properties.
Doug, can I ask about the first condition?
Yes.
What is the trigger for the engineering
It would be
department?
up to the engineering department or the planning board if we were to receive complaints or there was issues. So it was noted. And so Barton and LeJudas provided transportation services for the town. One of their comments was that the volume entering northbound lefts on the proposed highway are low, but the northbound advancing volumes and the southbound opposing volumes are both high, hence meeting the warrants for a left turn lane. Closing the driveway access to Route 250 once development occurs is a good idea, but the town may need the adjacent property to allow the connection. We recommend a condition that if the northbound left crash problem develops before access to the north occur, that restricting northbound lefts at certain times of the day may be implemented.
Got it. So it's a northbound crash problem. Crash problem.
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
So we can request that Barton and LeJudas provide their best estimate. We could provide the engineering, or have the engineering department review and determine what they believe to be an appropriate measure or an appropriate threshold. Our traffic engineer left it very open-ended.
But you're not going to want to have it open-ended in the resolution, because then it's kind of
Right.
amorphous and when you would trigger it.
If I may, I think the suggestion I would make, because I agree with Mr. Weishaar about it sounding open-ended, is I would tie it to the New York State DOT crash criteria, and basically what that is, in the most simplest form, is the DOT has a calculation that they do where they determine the crash rate based on per 1,000 vehicles that go through an intersection. And they have standards established per region. In other words, there for the Monroe County region, there is a standard as to what's considered I'll say an excessive crash rate. In other words, if that crash ratio is at a certain number and less, it's considered not to be excessive. And it is a calculation done on the volumes, but the point being is it is going to be something you'll be able to actually measure. In other words, as Doug pointed out, if there is so how do you define, is there an excessive number of crashes? Basically what you can do is every year you'll be able to pull the crash data that occurs at that intersection, run it through the calculations, and see where does it stand against what the state has established to be the normal crash rate for a T intersection. I think that would, and that's typically how they would weigh it when they look at crash data to determine if an intersection needs improvements for safety reasons. And given this is a state highway, the state has had a similar comment in their letter. I think that would be the easiest, or I should say the more direct way to administer that.
Can I ask if crash is the only factor? Thank you for that explanation. That was very helpful. But another reason you might want that light is for access, right? If there's so much volume, it becomes restrictive to make that like left or right turn out. Is that another thing that, or another criteria, or another reason that this condition could be enacted by the town to say, not just based on crash, but also based on access?
Wait times.
And yeah.
So I think there's two ways you could do that, or there's 2 points to that. First of all, the traffic study that was done did show that the intersection under full development, even including the residential component, does not meet the warrants for a signal light. Okay, what it did show was that it does meet the warrants to have a left turn lane into the site. But then the DOT reviewed this and basically said, their recommendation was for the developer to post a bond for those improvements so that they could be applied to the Sweets Corners Road intersection, because when that intersection is improved, the left turn lane into this development will be removed because our driveway will be removed because it does have to connect up to the new Sweets Corners intersection. So they're basically kind of saying, don't spend the money here, put it up at the larger intersection. But in more direct response to your comment, what you can do, and this is not unheard of, is you can make a condition that whether it's within 1 year or 2 years of the issuance of the C of O, that you have an updated traffic study prepared. That's a common practice also.
Yep, the planning board did that at the Arborist development just to the north.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those are two good suggestions about, the bond. As we were talking about earlier today, how do you get this developer to contribute to the future need for the intersection improvements? And, whatever that bond amount would be, I think that would be an appropriate condition. Because it's needed here, so it's justified, but then ultimately you're going to use it for the larger project.
Yeah, so at this point in time, it seems like we need more detail on that resolution.
Okay, this was just the negative declaration. We haven't
Yeah.
drafted a resolution yet.
Yeah.
This was just to take a look at all the impacts from seeker and have the board work on closing that out. If the board was satisfied that enough mitigations were proposed, we can modify the negative declaration to include those and state that they'll be added as conditions into the resolution, future resolutions as mitigation efforts.
Is there any reason why you'd want to do the seeker now rather than wait and do everything together?
We could do everything up to the board.
I don't know.
I'll leave it up to the board.
Yeah, we can do that together.
Yeah, so would you want to wait until next meeting then? Have staff draft the changes to the negative declaration,
Yeah.
review it at September 10th? Have the board draft an approval resolution for review at September 10th?
Sounds appropriate. Yeah.
Okay.
If I may. Well, first of all, for the record, I'm Peter Vars from BME Associates. If I could ask, we did, at our last meeting, you had requested that we provide architectural elevations for the new construction. We did do that, and I guess if we are preparing, hopefully for site plan approval at September 10th meeting, is there just any comments on those from the board this evening that we should take into consideration prior to next meeting, if there's anything we need to respond to? Basically, and John Lefroy is here also, who part of the ownership group and will be the builder, is, as we've stated, the new build will be constructed to match the existing structure, but there will be a color change in that. As you see in these renderings, it will be going to white panels with a black roof versus the green that it is now, and that both will be finished similarly. And with the new build, one of the things we had seen from Mr. Lopez's comments is the addition of windows, and these elevations show where the windows have been added, along with the overhead garage door features also, which are there for pedestrian. There's no vehicle storage or anything happening here.
If you want additional feedback from Chris Lopez, we can provide this most recent update to Chris as well.
Yeah, let's do that if you think he can turn that around, fairly quickly.
I believe you can.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, so the action on this would be just to table?
Yeah, so table pending the drafting of approval resolution and amending or revising the draft negative declaration.
Okay, so moved.
I'll second.
Kanauer,
Kanauer, aye.
Aken,
Aken, aye.
Daly,
Daly, aye.
McCooey,
McCooey, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
Okay, really quickly, because we're coming up against 7 o'clock, for both 2130 Fairport 9 Mile Point applications, the 7 Brew and the quick service restaurant, both applicants have requested that their applications not be discussed while they continue working on additional feedback and responding to the board's comments.
Okay, so no action.
And then we can wait on the new business item until after the public hearing.
Okay. Okay, with that, we will move into the public hearing application. The process that we use is the applicant will come up and review the project, describe it to the board. I know previously this did go through a sketch, so there were some comments that were given prior to this meeting. And then when the presentation is complete, the board will have the opportunity to ask questions. After that, it will be open for public comment, and we will be using a 5-minute limit on comments. So we want everybody to speak. We can do another round if there's somebody that has thought of something else and would like to speak. We can certainly do that. Just keep in mind that I know if you have the same comments as somebody else that has already spoken, you could quickly summarize it. You don't have to get into that much detail, just, so we can save some time. So given that, Doug, if you want to read the application.
Yes. BME Associates, on behalf of One School Global, request preliminary and final subdivision Approval to subdivide an 11.3 acre parcel at 1275 5 Mile Line Road into 2 lots and preliminary and final site plan approval and conditional use permits for the development of a private school on Lot 1 and a church on Lot 2. The property is now or formerly owned by 1275 5 Mile Line Road LLC and zoned residential R120, application number 26P-0014, SBL number 094.03-1-22.
All set? So, good evening. My name is Peter Vars with BME Associates, appearing tonight on behalf of One School Global. With me this evening is Mr. Charlton Stevens to my right from One School Global, and also John Lefroy is here from Lefroy Builders. They are the builder and the architect, and they will be able to discuss the building architecture as part of tonight's presentation. As mentioned, we are appearing this evening to request preliminary and final site plan, subdivision, and conditional use permits for the development of 11.4 acres located at 1275 5 Mile Line Road. The property is zoned residential R-1-20. The 3 proposals in this application: the subdivision is a proposed 2-lot subdivision of the 11.4 acre site. Lot 1 will be the northern lot. It will consist of 6.56 acres. And Lot 2 will be the southern lot, which will be 4.86 acres. The site plan application is for Lot 1, a 22,100 square foot single-story private school, and on Lot 2, a 4,800 square foot single-story church. Both buildings at a single story are less than the code allowed maximum building height of 35 feet. Both uses do require conditional use permits per the Town of Penfield zoning code. The school is a conditional use per section 250-5.E1K of the town code, and the church is a conditional use allowed per 250-5.E1A of the town code. The property is located on the west side of 5 Mile Line Road, which is County Road 18. It is across from Sea-Watch Trail. The property has 2 pieces of frontage as shown on the outline in blue. The northern frontage is about 218 feet, and the southern frontage is around 130 feet. So the property, its eastern boundary is about 350 feet of 5 Mile Line Road frontage, and the 2 frontages are around the existing house at 1297 5 Mile Line Road. To the north of the property are 2 residential properties, 1281 and 1259 5 Mile Line Road. And as you can see on this aerial, the western and southern adjoiners to this property are the conservation lands of the town of Penfield, and which are currently part of the Bauman Farm. But those are permanent open space lands per the town of Penfield's open space program from several years ago. So as you can see on this property outline, the property itself exists to the west. It just really only abuts about 2 homes of the residential, the Viola development located north of that property. Currently, the property is dormant agricultural land. It has a gentle east to west slope. It drops about 10 feet in grade from 5 Mile Line Road towards its low point, which is in the southwest corner of the property. The 2 proposed lots for the subdivision have been prepared, and they do meet the bulk lot requirements of the R120 zoning district for lot area, lot width, and perimeter setbacks. And this includes, given the conditional uses proposed, providing a 50-foot buffer to adjoining residential zone lands and 100-foot building setbacks to the outside perimeter property lines. As it relates to the interior separation between the school building and the church building and their lot line, a side setback variance will be required, as the school is set back 37 feet from the joint Lot 1, Lot 2 line, and the church is set back 39 feet from the joint Lot 1, Lot 2 line, where the code requires 100 feet because of the conditional uses. We've applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for an area variance to request the relief for those side setbacks, and we are scheduled to appear before the ZBA at their meeting next Thursday, August 20th. The site plans have been, for each lot, have been prepared also to conform to the bulk area requirements, and that includes the fact that they do provide ample green space. The school lot, Lot 1, has 73% green space, or only 27% of impervious lot cover, and Lot 2 for the church has 77% green space, or only 23% of impervious cover. Each lot will have its own driveway with access to 5 Mile Line Road. Each access point has been reviewed to show that it does have adequate site distance, meeting the Monroe County Department of Transportation's criteria for highway access. As requested through the sketch plan review that when we appeared before this board on April 9th, and the supporting PRC memo that was prepared, we did proceed with a traffic assessment for the two proposed uses, the school and the church. That assessment was, provided to the town as part of our preliminary final application, and it was also provided to the Monroe County Department of Transportation. What that assessment showed was during the peak hour travel times on the adjacent highway network, that the school, which is intended to serve a population of 50 students, would have peak hour trips of 22 vehicles in the morning and 9 vehicles during the evening peak hour on the adjacent roadway. The church, which could have capacity or events for up to 100 people, their peak hour would obviously be during the Sunday or the weekend, and their peak hour trips would be 54 trips. Why those two numbers are very important is it relates to the criteria both through the New York State DEC and the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and also the Monroe County Department of Transportation. Both those entities acknowledge that traffic trips that do not exceed 100 trips during the peak hour do not warrant any further study. Monroe County Department of Transportation has reaffirmed that, and given adequate site distance and the low traffic volumes, does not require any mitigation or further study for that. They find the trip generation assessment completed by the traffic consultant to be satisfactory. As it relates, one of the other key areas we discussed at sketch plan was drainage stormwater runoff. As highlighted on this rendering here, you can see in the southwest corner the proposed stormwater management facility. This is the area where water tends to collect or drain today. And what we did do, again, per direction from the sketch plan review with this board, we did walk the property with the town engineer's office and Mr. Baumann himself. Basically, we walked it with Mr. Baumann and was to review the current drainage patterns. Obviously, he has a well-known knowledge of how the drainage works and where water is going and where he would like it to go, such that we have designed this so that the discharge will be to the south property line to an existing farm ditch. We've provided the engineer's report, the stormwater pollution prevention plan, to the town engineer's office. It has been prepared per the New York State DEC criteria, and it has been prepared to show that the stormwater management plan prepared will include the necessary features to provide the required water quality treatment volumes, and that it will also attenuate the post-development peak rates of runoff, such that the peak discharge rates in the post-development condition are less than the current discharge rates. The property is served by public sanitary sewer and public water. Both are available along 5 Mile Line Road. The The school will be served by an 8-inch gravity sewer that'll be private, and it will also be served by a 6-inch combined water service as the building will be sprinklered. The church will be served by a sanitary pump station and force main because of elevation, and will be served by a 1.5-inch domestic water service. Both of those will be private services. As it relates to parking on the property, for the school, excuse me, the parking is provided to the north of the building as illustrated on the rendering. 62 spaces are being provided. That includes 3 ADA accessible spaces and includes an ADA accessible route from those spaces to the entry of the building. Per town code, there is no designated parking ratio required per school, and thus the code states that the board having jurisdiction, which is this board, would determine the amount of parking to be required. We provided the 62 spaces based on the information that One School Global has because they are relocating. So they are operating in their existing facility in Webster, so they do have a very good handle on their demand. As we mentioned, the school is being sized for 50 students, plus they'll have 4 full-time and 4 part-time staff, but the parking is provided obviously for school events. The church has parking provided for 49 spaces plus 10 land bank spaces along the east property line for a total of 59 spaces. The code requires 1 space per 3 seats. As we mentioned, the church would have capacity up to 100 people, so we do meet the parking requirements per the code for the church. The last thing is, as you can see on the rendering, the 2 properties are going to be connected by a driveway. That will be gated, but that is there so that the gate can be opened whether either entity is running some form of an event that would require additional parking. They will have a shared parking agreement so that so overflow parking could be utilizing the other property. As it relates to fencing, the fencing will be provided around the school property only, and more importantly, as it relates to the north end, the fencing will be about 25 feet off of the north property line. Again, that was one of the concerns and comments we heard at the sketch plan review. And then that's our lead into our discussion on lighting, landscaping, and open space. Lighting for the proposed project will be dark sky compliant LED lighting. For the school, there will be parking lot lights, 3 of them on 20-foot poles, 3 of them located along the north property line. For the church, there will be 2 parking lot lights, 1 in each lot, which will be on 20-foot poles. Each driveway and then the drop-off for the school, they will be lit with 42-inch bollard lights. It is important to know that the school has committed to the fact that the parking lot lights will be turned off overnight. They will be on timers, but they will be shut off overnight. Landscaping was something that was discussed in earnest at the sketch plan review, and the original plan actually showed us grading up to the north property line. As shown here, what we've done is we've pulled those limits back such that 25 feet of that area will be not disturbed, so the portions of the existing hedgerow that are on the school, One School Global property will remain in place. But in addition to that, along the proposed development north property line, additional plantings will be placed. As you can see on this rendering, if we go from left to right, in the northwest corner, we are proposing additional plantings there to screen the athletic field and the school from those residents to the north. And then as you move eastward, the existing parking lot has a mix of maples and firs proposed to be planted along there to supplement the hedgerow. And then we are proposing landscaping in the northeast corner as it relates to a buffer to the existing property. I believe that's 1259 5 Mile Line Road. And then the final landscaping being proposed as it relates to the perimeter is for the rear of the home at 1297. Those plantings there, which total about 18 plantings. The landscaping plan proposed, first of all, we're not clearing any trees. It is the dormant agricultural land. We are adding 63 trees in these various clusters to provide buffering, and then we're providing an additional 80 shrubs throughout the property, primarily around the stormwater ponds and the foundations planting areas of the property. As it relates to open space, there will be the 2 athletic fields to the rear of the school. Those will not be lit. There will be 2 patio areas for the school to the south. Both of those patio areas, the one and the smaller one due south, they're obviously buffered from the residential neighborhood to the north by the building itself. And then also what you see is the mosaic of colors there, primarily on the church property, but then also the entryway. Those are called out to be seeded, excuse me, to be seeded with a wildflower pollinator mix. It is the intent for those to be a wild flower to be attractive to pollinators. It's an environmental conservation seed mix that we've specified that has been very successful to provide a low maintenance but yet natural landscape feature. The site plans we've prepared, we're prepared to address the comments of the sketch plan review received from this board. We did provide written responses to that with our letter of intent. And as I mentioned, we believe we addressed the key concerns regarding drainage, traffic assessment, and landscaping and buffering. As we note, this is a type 1 action under seeker, given the fact that it's a non-residential project over 10 acres in size. So we would be requesting the planning board to declare their intent to be lead agency and to initiate the coordinated review of the project. As we've mentioned, it is conditional use permit being required for both. Within our letter of intent, we did address the 11 criteria within Town Code Section 250-13 4A2 to show how the proposed uses are compatible with its surroundings and do not the use itself does not result in any adverse impact onto the community. And we also addressed within our letter of intent the subdivision and site plan review factors. So that's an overview of the proposed site plan. I'll now, if you would like, I will have John Lefroy come up and he can walk you through the building architecture, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay. Do I go over there, John? Yeah. Sit here. Let me hold them. Here, give me.
Evening, guys. John Lefroy Builders. It's on.
Yeah.
The school building, as Peter had mentioned, is 22,000 square feet. It will be built with structural steel. It will have a standing seam metal roof panel on the roof, and then it will be on the exterior elevations. It will be a combination of brick, which we're depicting on the front facade of the building. That'll kind of be the lower 10 feet, and then 2 different colors of ephes will go along the front. This is kind of the architectural element that'll be the front entrance where the sign is showing. And then this will be the kind of the background ephes color where the parapet is showing. That will be the main features along the front, along with some storefront glazing, aluminum storefront glazing with a black aluminum color. And then the rear of the building will still have combinations of the brick and the ephes, along with some metal panel features in the bronze and black color tones. So happy to pass these around, happy to identify any more elements that you would need. And I don't know if we need to touch on the church. The church would be more of a wood construction, more residential type construction, so it'll be wood truss construction, and it'll be a combination of like a timberline shingle on the roof, and then a combination of some vinyl siding and stucco on the facades.
Okay.
Okay, and so then the last thing we'd like to do is we do have representatives from One School Global that would like to speak just to talk about their operation, because I know, given what the conditional use permit requirements, that is should be of importance to the board also. So
Sure.
if we'll do that. So.
Good evening. Allison Galvano, 57 North Avenue, Rochester. For the past 14 years, I've had the privilege of working at One School Global, and over that time, I have watched us grow, develop, and deeply invest in the lives of our students. We are a community rooted in care, safety, integrity, and academic excellence, and we're eager to bring those same values to our new campus home. We help our students to not only achieve their academic potential, but to gain the skills necessary to be positive contributors to the towns and cities in which they reside. As a primary teacher for the first 9 years of my time at One School Global, I made a concerted effort to communicate to my students that giving back was an essential piece of their educational experience. We found simple yet impactful ways to serve our Webster community, including writing and delivering encouraging notes to the residents at Maplewood Nursing Home, picking up litter from Ridgecrest Park, and leading a creek cleanup near our campus on Earth Day. As a school, we've participated in food drives for multiple years that have put hundreds of food products on the shelves of the Webster Food Pantry, providing meals to people in their time of need. These are just some of the ways our students have come to understand that serving their local community is both a civic responsibility and a great privilege. Should the building of our new campus be approved in the town of Penfield, you can be sure that One School Global would be an actively positive contributor to this community. I understand why change can bring uncertainty and deeply respect the questions and concerns voiced by the Penfield neighbors, but I do want to assure you a good school doesn't just take up space in a town, it enriches it. We arrive not just as an institution, but as active partners eager to contribute positively to the fabric of this community. Our presence means a dedicated, community-minded neighbor invested in the safety, well-being, and vibrancy of the area we all share. OSG will add value to this area rather than detract from it, and we will be a good neighbor to each home and business in the surrounding area. We are excited for this next chapter and look forward to growing alongside of the town of Penfield. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Galvano. Next, we'll bring up Ms. Meisner, who is the head principal of this school.
Good evening, Jessica Meisner, 9092 Kearney Hollow Road, Wayland, New York, 14572. Good evening, Chairperson and members of the Penfield Town Board. My name is Jessica Meisner, and I am honored to be the principal of One School Global Rochester campus. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself and share our vision for a new campus here in Penfield. One School Global is a modern, independent school serving students in grades 3 through 12. Our focus is on developing self-directed, life-ready learners through high academic expectations, character development, and innovative learning environments. As principal, I have the privilege of working with students who are preparing to become future business leaders, skilled professionals, community members, and engaged citizens. Our mission is not only to help students achieve academic success, but also to cultivate values such as integrity, respect, care, compassion, responsibility, and service. We believe a new campus in Penfield would be a meaningful benefit to your community. Our students are encouraged to participate in service projects and community engagement, creating opportunities to build positive connections with local organizations and residents. It would also create a beautiful, maintained campus that reflects the character and standards of the town of Penfield. Most importantly, we are committed on being good neighbors. We value collaboration, respect for the community, and long-term stewardship of the property. We see ourselves as partners in helping Penfield remain a vibrant, family-focused community that invests in education and the success of future generations. Thank you for your time, your service to the community, and your consideration of our proposal. I look forward to working together to make this vision a reality.
Thank you, Ms. Meisner. I think we'll turn it back to you guys for any questions.
Thank you very much. I have a few questions to start with for Peter. So my understanding, the change to the fence was on the north property line where that was moved 25 feet closer, correct?
No, the original fence was along the property line itself.
Right.
So we've pulled the fence 25 feet south.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
I'm sorry if I misinterpreted your question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
So that was really, other than that, the fence remains as it was in the prior. Okay. The drainage between the north lot and the south lot, is there piping that goes, is that part of the design?
So it's primarily sheet flow, how the school, there are storm sewers within the school property up in the parking lot to get the drainage around, but then it will discharge and then it is conveyed overland to the stormwater pond. We will, there will be, as required by the town, there will be a stormwater maintenance agreement, and it will be, and there will also be a joint agreement between Lot 1 and Lot 2 as it relates to the maintenance of the stormwater management facility in that regard.
For the two lots, is the legal entity of ownership exactly the same?
No, two separate legal entities.
Okay.
So I think what we would do, as we typically would do, is prior to filing the subdivision map, we would have the documents provided to the town attorney showing that shared access is in place, the shared drainage plan is, or stormwater maintenance agreement is in place, as would be our typical practice.
Okay. Got lighting. Okay, that's all I have right now.
I have
Sure.
a couple questions. When you talked about the lighting, you mentioned parking lot. Is there lighting on the buildings themselves, or?
Come on up, Jeff.
Right. For the parking lot itself, the intention to light the parking lot will be through the light poles in the parking lot. There may be a light off the back where the playground is, some convenience lights up in the front where the outdoor patio is, but nothing of significance to try to light the parking lot with it.
Okay, but something on the building to?
Might be like I wouldn't even call them wall, not the wall packs in the intent that you would think that would light a parking lot with. It would be more light for some of the patio areas, so low-level lighting at the patio areas.
And you mentioned playground, so that was something that I had a question about. So there is plans for outdoor facilities?
Well,
for
Charlton, maybe you can.
Yeah, if you flick back, to the site plan, so yeah, right where your cursor is at the moment, that is where the playground for the students will be, in that grass area adjacent to that patio.
Okay. And is it, how elaborate is the playground?
Not very elaborate.
Okay.
Simple playground.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And what about things like snow removal and waste removal and all of that?
Yeah, so snow removal will be done on a contract, and then waste removal, you'll see the dumpster storage location up there where the mouse is. Yeah, pointing
Okay.
right there.
And I take it the kids are brought to school by their own family vehicles?
Correct,
No
yep,
busing is
exactly.
needed or anything like that?
Right. That's correct. There's no school bus traffic. However, as you can see on the rendering up at the loop drop-off, there's 2 spaces right where the cursor is for transport vans, because they will have 2 vans, for instance, for a field trip, something like that. But
Okay. That's all I have right now.
Can I ask about the fence material? I think that was discussion last time. What is the fence going to look like?
Sure. It will be a vinyl-coated, black-coated chain link fence around the back. Some architectural features on the fence will be at the gates as you drive in the driveway.
So almost invisible fencing.
Can we get renderings of this?
of the fence?
The fence. It's
I
like
believe
what
there
it would
was
look
one
like.
submitted.
Yeah,
I think we did
I
submit
believe we
those
did
with the
submit
PRC
those.
response. But if not, we'll get them to you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Can I jump in? I see that there is some land banking of parking spaces for the church parking lot. Has that been considered for the school, given, 62 parking spaces seems, it seems high relative to the student body.
I guess.
Yeah, so the 62 spaces are for whenever we do gatherings at the school or events at the school, such as a orientation day or parent-teacher conferences, or whenever we host events where the parents of the children will come to that school. So that's why we need the car parking spaces. Allow for grandparents, aunts and uncles and all the rest of it.
That's all I've got right now.
On the parking lot, what size staff do you envision being at the school?
Yeah, so right now it's 8 staff at the moment. There is, that could expand in the next 5 years to between 12 and 15 staff, depending.
Okay, anyone else at this point?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Doug, sorry for Doug. So I see on the renderings, there's like signage on 3 sides of the building. Do they need zoning board approval for any of the
I'd recommend
signs?
reaching out to the building department to determine if a special use permit for signage would be necessary.
Yeah, that's a good point. Once the sign package is determined, we'll review it with the building department to determine if there's any variances required for signage.
Well, because I don't see it because it almost like it's kind of a bit of an architectural feature. So make sure you get that ironed out.
Okay.
It'd be worth having a conversation with the zoning administrator to determine if something like the, so the One School Global sign is definitely going to be considered a sign, but the, I'm blanking on the map of the world. Thank you. May not be considered signage because it's not a direct advertisement of the school itself, so it may be considered an architectural feature by the zoning administrator. So that'd be a conversation to have with them.
So Doug, that's something maybe we should submit to get an interpretation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, so I'd submit it to Shannon Schuman in the building department.
Okay.
And I just wanted to make really clear, if we go back to the site plan for a second. Sorry, the landscape rendering, actually. Yeah, and there should be another view with the zoomed out. The big one, yeah. Yes, I just wanted to make it really clear that the fields behind, or to the west, I guess, of our lot is obviously Bowman's fields at the moment. That is what is forever green, and they will obviously remain forever green. Our lot ends right where the cursor is. So there is that, I guess, almost double the width of farmland that will remain in place. The fence is only around the school property. So we, obviously the wildlife would be welcome on the church property. The pond in there for a potential watering hole for any wildlife there, as well as Peter mentioned, the fields of wildflowers for potential pollinators in the area. Obviously we know bees are a problem at the moment, so giving back to the community in that way. But the church site is completely open to the farmland. There is no fence dividing that property.
Okay, and Peter, you mentioned lead agency. Information from staff that was requested.
Good.
We just haven't heard back from all the agencies.
Staff submitted on the board's behalf lead agency requests to all involved and interested agencies. We sent those out on July 14th with a requested response date of August 17th, which is after this meeting. So the board can declare its intent to serve as lead agency at its next meeting. Once the minimum 30 days have passed, the board can declare lead agency. I'm not expecting other agency to challenge that. We have received comments back from all county agencies, planning and development, DES, public health, and DOT, all concurring with the planning board as lead agency, and none had substantive comments.
Okay.
Yeah, Peter or John, back there's lighting in the buildings. Now, I think you probably should give us something if you're going to be doing any lighting.
Sure.
On the renderings for we take a look at them and where they're going to be, if you don't mind. And doors. So you got front and rear doors on both these buildings?
There's going to be, there's really two entrances. At the one-way or the circle, that's the drop-off for students, and then the main entrance is really on the north side at the bump out right there. That's kind of the main entrance into the campus. That'll be a secured entrance point. People have to walk in and get by a checkpoint before they get into the building that way. Won't be one other entrance that'll be a lot less lightly used is to the gym directly, just in case there's an event going on at the gym. Everybody can bypass walking into the school and walk directly into the gym.
The gym, is the gym the main event space, or is there any other like auditorium or other area where?
The gym will also have a stage within it, so it'll kind of act as a multi-purpose room.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is it cafeteria?
Yeah.
As they call them?
It's got a cafeteria in it too?
The dining space will actually be sort of in the center section of the school, so the gym is only a gym and the stage area.
And John, you mentioned the one building is wood structure, the tan one there.
The
School.
church structure on the south.
Is that like siding? You can't really tell from that.
It'll be a combination. We're kind of going through the budgeting and final design on it right now, but it'll be a combination of vinyl siding and EFS.
Okay, so we'll take a look at that when you come up with the plan for that one. The fencing, how high are you going to do with the fencing? Your black vinyl fence?
6 feet.
6 feet.
Yeah. It'll be 6 feet per code. Yep.
Per code. Okay, you said you need one area variance?
Correct. Yes.
For?
So conditional use permits, or the condition, require 100-foot setback to property lines. and we're creating a property line between the two conditional uses. So per code, there should be 100-foot separation. In other words, those buildings should be 200 feet apart to comply with the code. We're requesting the variance to reduce that so that, just because it's an interior setback, in
Yeah.
our opinion.
There won't be any setback then, right? That's what you need, right?
Well,
Really,
yeah, I mean, so,
because you own them both, I guess. So.
right. I mean, we could dissolve the lot line, but, yeah, and then it's moot.
And you did see Bruce Zaretsky's notes, right?
Yes, we did, and we've provided written responses to those. The one comment that I think is important, he had made a comment about some of the spacing, and our landscape architect did look at that. The spacing is prepared so that the trees can grow and fill out. If we plant them too close together initially, that actually stunts their growth. So, it was based on that, but we did provide the responses to Mr. Zaretsky's comments.
What about sidewalks in the front along the?
Oh, that's a good point. Thank you. Right. We are the sidewalk, the ped zone is we are required to comply with that, and that's our intent.
Okay. So you're probably going to put sidewalks in?
I believe that's what well, actually, we are going to request the waiver from the PRC and then into the town board. And we did state that in our response to the PRC comments.
Okay, that's it for me for right now. I'm sure I'll have more later.
Okay. Okay, at this point, we will open it up for the public hearing.
Okay, bypassing that part. Best way to do it. Good.
So these are numbered. I will do them in the order I guess they came in. The first name is Brian Coffey, 1281 5 Mile.
Before I begin, can you guys pull up a map of the property of 1281? Just blow it up for me.
There you go.
All right.
And I'll remind, you probably see that big clock there.
I gotcha, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll be under the 5, don't worry.
thank you.
All right, so I'll get into it. So our concern, at least at our property anyway, is specifically about the buffering. In the plan, I don't think it looks adequate enough. Our backyard, as you can see there, is pretty private. Even with our neighbor at 1277, we can be in our backyard and no one can really see us. So for us, we'd like to ask the board to consider adding a privacy fence along our property in the rear and in the side. And our stance is if we're going to do that, it's going to completely disrupt any kind of uniform look that we have back there. So in order for us to have that same look of privacy, that's the whole reason we bought the home. We would like the fence to go around our property in the backyard just to give us that same privacy vibe that we already had. And then just to respond to some of the remarks that were made before me, in regards to the lighting, like what constitutes overnight, like specifically what time is that? What time is overnight? And what assurances do we have that they're actually going to be turned off at night other than their word? 20-foot poles, in my opinion, seem awfully high. Our bedroom is about 20 feet off the ground. We're going to be staring straight into that from where that parking lot is. The idea of that many parking spots as well doesn't marry with the student body that they're claiming that they have. 63 spots, I get they're saying in the event of any kind of events they're hosting. I think my pushback on that is they haven't been very forthcoming about what that looks like, right? So if you're going to have events there, I feel like as a neighbor to that property. How often are these events? What time do they typically take place? And we haven't really been told any of that. And in that same vein, church schedule, what time are masses typically? I know they gave us a general schedule last time they were here. That doesn't marry with what we're seeing that they do at other locations. So I just want to make sure if that's the time they're telling us, that's the time they stick to. And if that's the time they're telling us, I want to make sure there is some recourse if they start deviating from those plans. As a neighbor that's directly touching it, like I said, we go into the backyard, we can't see anything other than the field. It's beautiful back there. So our biggest concern is I don't want to walk into the backyard and have people from the school and in the parking lot being able to look directly into our home. You could speak to. So essentially what we're asking for at 1281 is I want to have a privacy fence conditioned on approval of this. That's really my main issue is privacy. Everything else that everyone else is going to talk about, traffic, everything else, that's way down on my priority list. For me, number one paramount issue is privacy. The buffering, landscaping that they provided, I took a look at the plan there. It's not going to be adequate, and by the time it is, it'll be 10 years from now, respectfully, by the time those trees mature and and they're able to actually give us any kind of privacy. And then this is my mother, the former property owner of 1281. She knows the property pretty well.
Yep. Lived there, enjoyed the serenity. Sad to see that it's not going to be as serene. Severe noise pollution. Schools bring noise pollution with the PA system, bells, sports whistles that repeat daily. There's light pollution. The high-intensity stadium lights, which are going to sit up high, will certainly shine into their backyard, their bedroom, and the kitchen that faces that way. Not the Jay's change. The loss of visual privacy. The multi-story school building is going to be sitting up higher and be overlooking the existing backyard. There's also diminution of property value. That's a concern.
Yeah, and in that vein, I honestly think the only way to adequately address any concern that we might have in future of property value is if we just have a privacy fence. We proactively got ahead of some of our concerns that I brought up last time about stormwater runoff. I've seen so many cases of development causing septic systems to back up into people's basements. We're getting off septic, going onto sewer just because of this. I don't want to have to keep coming out of pocket to be able to maintain the standard of living that I currently have. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question just to clarify? Your request is that the applicant builds the fence?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not that you have permission to build this
Nope.
fence?
I'm specifically asking for the applicant to fence us in. If they do that, I have zero issues. Like, I'll be the greatest neighbor they've ever not seen, Yeah.
And have a privacy fence, because a 6-foot-high chain link fence
That
provides doesn't really help that much. Chain link, first of all, someone can climb over those fences much easier.
And I've seen those. I mean, respectfully, like leaves, debris, everything is going to just get collected in that. Back there is a wind tunnel. You should see the snow drifts that happen in the winter back there, right? So I can easily see after even one storm, without even poor maintenance, just that being a little bit of an eyesore. Mm-hmm. I would want a privacy fence back there. Like I said, I just want to maintain what I currently have. I'm not looking to add to anything. I literally just want to maintain the privacy in the backyard.
Okay.
Thank you.
Could you state your name, please?
Kathleen Coffey.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, next, Barry Howard, 1277 5 Mile Line Road.
Good evening. Thank you for letting us speak this evening. I'm Barry Howard. I live at 1277 5 Mile Line Road, and if you can bring up that you got your little mouse right on my house, that's fine. So Brian, who just spoke, lives at 1281. I live at 1277, so you would think that just directly north of my house would be 1275, but that's what this project is being called, and I've already had people in my driveway wanting to know where 1275 is because it doesn't fit there. It's not numbered correctly, and it needs to be fixed, hopefully, before construction starts and trucks start looking for 1275 next to my house, and it's not there. So I have a couple of questions. There was a mention about the traffic study, and when the application came in, the traffic study was yet to be prepared or yet to be delivered to the town. I have an email that came on Tuesday from Monroe County, from the traffic engineering project manager, that indicated that no studies have been submitted to MCDOT, nor have any traffic reports been submitted to them. They are underway looking at signage on 5 Mile Line Road as a result of an email that I sent them several months ago. And they do indicate that they will review the traffic impact reports and construction plans, but that as of yet they have not received those. So I'm just curious to know, they might have maybe it happened on Tuesday afternoon. I don't know whether you have them or whether the county's got them yet or not, but I would think that we would want to look at those before. In their application letter, their notation, we talked about the fact that under section 250-12-3B, that one of the things that should be considered and given is noise and privacy. If you come back to that landscape drawing that's there, the one that shows all the pretty bushes, that's the one. Oh, you had it. That's the one right there. So there are 63 trees being planted on this site. If you'll notice, if you can zoom in on the driveway that comes off of 5 Mile Line Road that goes along the 400 feet of Brian's house, we get 3 trees, and they're 2 inches in diameter. That's not much of a privacy buffer. And I think that it either needs to be replaced with a privacy fence or it needs to be replaced with a significant amount of greenery to block that. I love the idea of the conservation and the wildflowers. That's terrific. But you know what that's going to turn into with plowed fields for the last 20 years? There'll be 6-foot-high weeds just like there are today, and they'll be there within 15 minutes of the time you plant that seed. I don't think that's a good solution to protect the backyards. If you can scroll down just a little bit on this drawing, or excuse me, scroll up. Make the picture go down. So my house is there, so I have that line of sight right through. So we still can see right into the backyards. This people can drive down this driveway and going to see right into our backyards. It's really not very private at all. So I would ask that that be taken care of. And the fact that you're planting elm, oak, and maple trees 2 inches in diameter, it's going to take 20 years for them to look like what those drawings look like, to have any kind of canopy on them. I really appreciate the changes that they made that came out of sketch review. I'm grateful that they listened. I am really grateful that you preserved that space along the north border that is on the west end of the project, that you brought the fence in, that you added additional. But I don't see any place on the drawings that say that that area between the fence and the property line needs to be preserved, that it's a do not disturb area, so that when the bulldozers show up and look at the plans, they don't just go in there and say, let's bulldoze to the lot line so they can make their lives easier. The landscape buffers on the north and east property lines are inadequate on the north, where it's closest to 5 Mile Line Road. I think that's been mentioned already, and I think that's about it. The only suggestion that I make is this, that when you post stuff on the website, the drawings that got posted on the website did not include this drawing, and they also did not include the 3019-10, which told us what plantings were going to be there and how big those trees were going to be. I had to call and get that. They did send it to me, Doug, and I'm really appreciative of the fact that that was a quick response. But I think that this should be included in the application when it's posted on the website. I think that that makes sense to let us see that. And that's it. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Okay, next, Jordan Miller. Good evening.
Jordan Milner of 30 Armitel Luster. I've lived in Penfield as an engaged town citizen for 35 years. I've already submitted written comment to this board focused on the applicant's plan and its inconsistencies with the town's 2023 comprehensive plan document. I'd like to take this time to go over a high-level version of the submitted written comment. Community vision is listed as a foundational component of the comprehensive plan. Executive summary page 2 acknowledges the attractiveness of Penfield as a place to live. In contrast to this acknowledgement, the applicant would bring unattractive characteristics to our town. Barrington, Illinois, and other places around the world have recently acknowledged the applicant as a threat to their communities, and in doing so, successfully stymied development efforts there. Penfield should always protect against anything threatening its attractiveness. Community profile page 5 of the comprehensive plan makes mention of the high level of educational achievement within this town. As a college graduate and as an adjunct professor of finance at a local university, I can appreciate the town's enthusiasm in touting educational attainment. At the same time, I'm saddened to say that the applicant is known on a worldwide level as an educational body that bans books.
I'm going to stop you there. This is a religious application, and we are
Do I
looking
get my
at
time
it.
back?
We are, yes. We are looking at this from a site plan perspective and a zoning perspective.
I'm citing your document, though, the
Yes.
comprehensive plan of the town.
Yes, but the comprehensive plan of the town does not contemplate the denomination or religious beliefs or how
I didn't
they
mention
operate.
religion at all. I mentioned that they ban books.
They're,
I can provide citations, if you like, to this board afterwards.
But I think that has no bearing on the decision for this
yes,
board.
correct.
The
The fact-
integrity of what you approve as a planning board has no bearing.
So this board is charged with looking at whether or not this application meets the criteria for the 3 different components that they're seeking: site plan, subdivision, and conditional use permit. So the code has the different elements that they need to meet. How they conduct their operation, or, that is not what this board is charged with looking at. They would likely be overturned in an Article 78 proceeding if they made considerations like that. So they're charged with looking at the land use criteria, not business operation or anything like that.
So comments of that nature, we aren't even considered.
Okay, so I will then go to the area related to housing. On executive summary page 3 within the plan, it cites the importance of maintaining property values. Land development for the applicant's benefit next to densely populated residential areas would drag on property values in an idiosyncratic way. Buyer demand for nearby homes would decline, which is a clear and obvious drag on value. More bluntly, no reasonable person would like to live next to a compound and stare at a black vinyl fence. This is a threat to the price one is willing to pay for a house in this specific area. Community profile page 9 of the comprehensive plan mentions that the town values its role as a high-quality bedroom community. The proposed development is incongruent with the adjacent neighborhoods and the thousands of single-family homes within the neighborhoods. Community vision and policy areas page 12 in the comprehensive plan cites an area where preserving the appeal of existing neighborhoods is a priority as town policy. Preserving the appeal is shaped by changes a neighborhood could be plausibly subject to, and naturally a proposed development that would threaten adjacent neighborhoods' appeal would raise avoidable questions regarding why high-quality neighborhoods must now tolerate town-approved decline of their community. There's been ambiguity as it relates to the applicant as a 501c3 organization, if they would receive tax-exempt status. If that's the case, they would drag on our tax base. The comprehensive plan on page 6 of the document outlines how Penfield's high median income level can spur economic growth and generate sales tax revenue. The applicant's organization, they promote their own closed-loop economy, in turn not striving to contribute anything to our local economy whatsoever. Travels and roadways has been alluded to earlier this evening. Executive summary page 2 within the plan states that road congestion is already too high and that planning decisions shouldn't make it worse. North of 5 Mile Line Road and Plank Road isn't designed for traffic flow from 2 schools, and the town shouldn't approve anything that will only lead to less road safety. Community vision and policy areas, page 12 within the comprehensive plan, makes mention of combating excessive cut-through traffic. Armitel Luster, the street where I live on and that I own a home on, has entry and exit at Hatch Road and 5 Mile Line Road, and it's subject to noticeable cut-through traffic. cut-through traffic will only get worse on Armitage-Luster if this is approved. And in closing, I'm disappointed that the comprehensive plan was not a document that could be used as a means to assess the way in which the town would like to be planned, to be developed, and certainly anything that's a threat to its integrity, especially as someone who's lived here for effectively my whole life. I'm profoundly disappointed.
Jordan, could you please spell your last name? I couldn't read
It's
it.
Milner, not Miller, and 2 L's. M-I-L-L-N-E-R.
Thank you. Okay. John Dorsey, and I guess,
John Miller for Ken Curry.
for Ken Curry.
Curry, C-U-R-R-Y.
Gotcha.
All right, so I seem to be the neighborhood talker, so I'll take care. It's just for the public record, Jonathan, J-O-N-A-T-H-A-N, Miller, 36 Armitage-Luster. Mr. Ken Curry of 43 Armitage-Luster and his neighbor John Dorsey have provided me one of their documents that I am going to read, but also kind of fill in some comments. So what Mr. Curry has said is, what he's looking at is the main issue is this black vinyl fence. When I went through the plans that were provided on the website, I was unable to find a black vinyl fence. Page 8 showed a chain link fence. So is it a black vinyl fence or is it a chain link fence? Paul?
You have to direct your comments to the chair.
Oh, okay. Chair, is it a black vinyl fence or a chain link fence?
I believe, to clarify.
You believe?
So they stated that it'll be a vinyl-covered chain link fence. So if you see
A vinyl-covered chain link fence. Have you ever
black-
seen one of those, Mr. Sangster?
Yes.
What do
We
they
have
look
one-
like?
We have one in our backyard.
You have one in your backyard?
Yes, we do.
Does it look good?
You can barely see it because of the color.
All right. Okay, so Paul seemed that he was very prepared. This was the second presentation he gave tonight. Very prepared. Why are there no pictures of this black chain link fence?
Well, the board, we have requested.
So we're unprepared for the meeting, or we're conveniently not providing it for tonight's meeting?
There was one thing that I believe was submitted, but
I think it was an issue with GovWell. Matt, if you want
So
to
we
bring
don't
it
have an
up-
answer.
Matt, if you want to bring it up, I did put it,
we're-
excuse me.
we're
Matt,
unprepared.
If you want to bring it up, it's on the
Unprepared.
active projects in the plan file.
All right, so we were not able to provide it. We're unprepared for tonight's meeting.
It has
we are still collecting information.
Okay,
This meeting.
unprepared.
No, I'm certainly well prepared.
I'm unprepared.
Listen, do your presentation, we will take your input, and we will work with that.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, so part of my presentation is, do we know of any schools that have 6-foot black vinyl fences? Yes, no, maybe?
We aren't here to answer questions.
Oh.
We just
It's a
receive your
rhetorical
input.
question.
Pardon?
Rhetorical question?
You ask the question, it goes into the
Okay.
public record. When we have a work session, then we review it.
So do we know of schools that have
Plank North and Plank South have chain link fences.
chain link fences?
Yes.
Black vinyl chain link fences?
I believe they're black vinyl chain link
I
fences.
believe. Okay.
Doug.
Yeah. Okay. Also, that one at Plank North, that's a whole nother, with that sign on there. All right, so we have so do we believe the black vinyl chain link fence is going to provide property, or provide privacy that the neighbors have been asking?
That's one of the things that was addressed.
That's one of the things that we're not prepared tonight to figure out. Okay, so basically what we've done is we've already had one meeting, we've had another meeting, and we're not prepared.
Do you have a question?
That
or a
was the
comment?
question.
Okay,
So the first
noted.
meeting was a sketch plan review, so that's not an application. This is the application, so this is the first public hearing
All right.
for this
So
actual
we're going to be
application.
more prepared for the next one?
This is the public hearing right now.
This is the public hearing.
All right. So, again, it's
The application won't be gaining approval tonight. There'll be subsequent meetings.
again,
where
we
this
just
application will
need to be
discussed.
prepared before we do things that affect the town and affect Mr. Milner's things. I want us to be prepared. You know, we can see all these other things. whatever. The only thing consistent in life is change. The other thing, though, is the light poles. We need a consistent answer on what's going on with these light poles. One of the things that was said was we will commit. Again, I guess I can't ask questions, but is there committed in the town code? We will commit. When is night? Is that defined in the town code? I think those are things we need to define, what committed means and what nighttime is. Is it nighttime right now, or is it nighttime at 5 o'clock? Does daylight savings time affect it? Those are things that we need answers to. So,
Noted. Noted.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I do have an individual on the phone, just so you're aware,
Okay.
so whenever you wish to take them.
Why don't we do the call-in now? We'll take a break from, I think we have 4 others. We just did 4, so yeah, let's do the call-in.
Okay, I have Sandra on the line.
Okay, hello, Sandra?
Hi, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Fantastic. My name is Sandra Gasterlich, 1763 Creek Street. Some of you town planning board members know me. I am listening online, and I would just like to say that I am hearing residents complain about the same thing that I complained about a development across the street from my home. And so I implore the board once again to please listen to the residents, especially because this is going to be in a residential area that now you have some issues with lighting and noise and traffic. And so my comment is, when is the town going to listen to the residents? And the gentleman, I believe his name was Jordan, that spoke earlier about the comprehensive plan, he is 100% right. When are we going to take the comprehensive plan into motion and live by it? I mean, right now it's just something in writing that nobody is actually enforcing. So it is in a residential area. I wouldn't want that behind my home. I have a dentist across the street from my house that has lighting that's glaring into my home, increased traffic, and nobody listened to me. So I implore you, as the town board, planning, zoning, whomever needs to hear it, they need to start listening to the residents of this community. Some of us have been in this community for 30-plus years, and we, you know, the one gentleman that said, are we just ignoring things? He's absolutely 100% right. The documents online are never fully there. They're never up to date. They don't answer all the questions, and it leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. So I'm going to leave you guys with that information. I know that you guys know who I am, and that you've heard from me before. While this is not in my neighborhood, it is in the town, and so it does upset me that so many other people are upset by something similar that I went through 2 years ago. So please listen to the residents when they say that they have concerns, and don't just bulldoze it through and approve it, please.
Okay, thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Greg Mason.
Thank you. My name is this one?
I believe so.
Mason,
Yes.
57 Arbordale, Leicester. I'd like to first start off by saying I think it's really interesting that you told Mr. Milner that the planning board doesn't really respond to the comprehensive plan. That's just an observation.
No,
Nothing more,
we
but,
do. That's
you know.
not true.
So
Typically, the planning board does not respond to public comments on public hearing nights. The purpose is for the planning board to sit here, absorb the comments that are provided to them.
That's fine. The observations about the light, visibility, and noise have already been made. The 111 parking spots, I think, is a huge factor. And that goes into a position of both credibility and understanding what the future really holds for this site if it is approved. The items that we were told during the sketch plan review about the small number of students and the limited traffic, and in fact restated in the traffic study where there's going to be so few cars, nothing has to be done. Now all of a sudden we need 111 parking spots for the church and the school. That doesn't seem to be consistent. And it leads us to be concerned that there may be other aspects to this plan that also are inconsistent. We've already talked about the fact you're going to be making some taxable property non-taxable. You're removing open arable land and turning it into something that's non-arable. And this, most importantly, has been stated a couple of times ahead of this, and that is the future. If you look at plans, you have plans as designed and planned, and then you have plans as executed and ongoing maintenance of those plans. And the descriptions we're hearing about the changes that were made, which I agree are for the better, concerning some of the buffering and some of the lighting and things like that, they all sound great. But we all know that as you define a plan that's designed and then how it's ultimately executed and then maintained over the next year, 2 years, 5 years, where do the residents around here go if 5 years from now the lights stay on all night? There's a lot more traffic. The C of O's already been issued, and we have to figure out what we're going to do with it then.
I will respond to that.
Okay.
So in the case where at night, if those lights are on, a call is made to the town hall, and at that point then the owner of the building, knowing that that was a condition of approval, will be told that they have to fix it.
So it's my understanding that that would be written into the C of O such that if the owner did not fix that, he would no longer be in compliance for that C of O.
Well,
they would be issued a code enforcement violation typically, and a notice to remedy. There's a whole process that goes through.
So there is a mechanism.
Right, so if they don't comply with conditions of approval, the mechanism would be to go to the code enforcement department, and then they would issue a demand, and they could potentially take them to town court.
And, okay. I spent 40 years in the city of Rochester working with both planning and code enforcement. Planning is a lot easier to actually have stuff happen than code enforcement. And I think anybody that's dealt with both of those would agree with that. Okay, thank you very much. I would like to mention one thing positive, and that is working with Doug and Michelle in the planning office was really, really great. They did an excellent job in responding to all of our requests.
Well, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the compliment.
And one before I finish, I don't know if you can punch this up, but I submitted this. It's a view from our backyard of what the building would look like. It should have been sent to all of you, of what the building would look like from 57 Armitage Luster, to give you some idea of, because we've seen a lot of renderings of the building, but none from really the outside of the property, what it would in fact look like.
Yeah,
it was a PDF.
It's a last.
That is in the resident comments, right, Doug?
Yes.
Yeah. So
it's the last,
that is in the file.
Matt, it's the last file in the public comment folder.
Yep. I just didn't know if you could punch it up. Yeah, there it is. So scroll down. So the top one is as is, and the bottom one is my Photoshop rendition of what it would look like based upon the sketches that I had available to me and the sizes that were described. I didn't put the fence in. So it's just the building itself. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Elaine Mason?
Elaine Mason, 57 Armitel Luster. I'm commenting as a neighbor with direct site impact, like you just saw in that photoshopped rendering from the proposed structures. We'll be able to see them both from our backyard as well as inside of our house, and we're not one of the two adjoining residences, as was mentioned before. The height of the school is called a single story, and indeed it is below the town's requirement of not going over 35 feet. But at 29 feet, just to compare, because you probably pass Montessori all the time, it's just a couple of feet shy of the Montessori school's height in comparison, which equals about 2.5 stories compared to neighborhood houses. So that's, you know, all of our frames of reference. And we've already talked about the parking spaces. Montessori has 48, and they have a fairly large school population. The grading of the land will be even with the highest point as it exists now. So therefore, the visibility of the structures will seem higher as the resulting elevation difference will be higher than it is now. So just, you know, how you're looking at it. This will make the 20-foot lighting and any proposed fencing seem elevated to the eye as well. And it impacts all of us neighbors' sight lines. And, you know, auxiliary lighting is usually left on at night in a lot of places. Even if there are timers and dimmers utilized, it's still very much of a concern and affects habitat, wildlife, and us as neighbors. And I'm thinking far in advance, but I'm just thinking that the school and church could possibly be a catalyst in the future for other adjacent development. Not saying that will happen, but just as a thought. And I just hope that you guys can think of yourselves as neighbors in the immediate area and steer clear of the proposal, because we do not want our neighborhood disrupted or the property values adversely affected. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Allison Galvano?
I shared already.
Okay. Jess Messner?
I also shared already. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anyone that would like to speak that has not spoken in the audience? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Michael Olszewski. I'm at 55 Armitel Luster, and learning a little bit more about what was proposed here. I see that One School Global is very concerned about security, and they got the fencing planned out. And a couple of questions came up to my mind is what other structures or facilities in the town have that level of security fencing or whatever the purpose is, and it has a very standoffish appearance, and I can appreciate their need for security, but I'm also kind of curious as to it fitting into the community landscape, how other facilities like a school have that kind of fencing to that degree, you know. And the second element is, since they're very security-minded, is there going to be some kind of like a condition or prohibition on security cameras, seeing that this goes into the backyards of a lot of people's houses? And, you know, think of all the private things you like to do in your house. I would think that all those people's houses that are back there, would there be some kind of condition or expectation of privacy regarding any security fences, security cameras that may be installed in the future, and how would that be addressed to satisfy the customer or the residents' privacy levels.
Okay.
That's pretty much all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Keep my mouth shut. John Dorsey, 41 Armitel Luster. To pick up where he left off, driving down 5 Mile Line Road and seeing this compound doesn't fit with the rest of the neighborhood. You have single-family homes, you have colonials, but you don't have gated communities. It has a front gate. Are they keeping the students in or keeping us out? They seem very seclusive. I'm just saying. I don't know if a fence is very neighborly. It just doesn't look like it fits with the rest of the neighborhood if you drive down Armitel Luster or 5 Mile Line Road. As far as a fence all the way around the school, I don't know of any, maybe around the court. I haven't been over there in quite a long time. But this just seems to be they want to be left alone and nobody bother them, which is their business, not ours. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else? Okay, so at this point, if someone that has already spoken, if you have any new thoughts that haven't been covered by the folks that have spoken previous, you're more than welcome to come up. We want to get all the input that we can. Yes.
Whoa! Hurt myself. Sorry. The only other thing I would like to mention is the gate. If the gate is like the one over on Ebner Road, that is a massive security gate. And when I was talking to Doug, as I understand that at the time that we were talking, you did not have any rendering of what the gate, in fact, would look like. And I think, again, you know, in terms of trying to provide some appearance to what was described as all this outgoing and lovey-dovey stuff, you know, a massive security gate is, you know, not entirely consistent with that. So more information on that would be useful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are we looking at the gate on the screen?
Yes. And it looks pretty much like the one there. Yep.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Peg Steele. I live at 51 Armitel Luster. I'm one of the 2 lots that this is going to back up to. And while I am pleased that they have moved the fence back from the lot line, I'm just concerned that that means that that area is going to be forever a mess. Because right now, it's got 6-foot weeds behind my yard. And there are dead trees and vines and things that really should be dealt with. And if they intend to leave that buffer forever wild, then I don't know if it's even a fire hazard down the road, because the weeds grow, they die, they grow, they die. They're creating a lot of undergrowth. And it's very unsightly. And I just wanted to express that concern.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
I think just to play off of the previous comment about the weeds, along my entire property line, I'm at 1281 again. It's completely overgrown. I'd like to trim it back. When my mom tried to do that a few years ago, the property owner, who I believe is sitting over there, had a pretty unpleasant conversation with her. I would just like them to clean that up a little bit because it's starting to get pretty nasty back there. At some point. It doesn't have to be immediately, but at some point, just clean it up in the meantime before development. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last chance. Okay, Peter, if you have any closing comments, all right. Board? We all good? Okay, I will call this public hearing closed. And the board still has some other business at hand that we have to take care of. So we'll take maybe a 2 or 3 minute break. So those that want to clear the room can do so. Okay, welcome back. So why don't we continue on our work session with the,
Do you want to table the public hearing application pending seeker, lead agency, and review of any staff or any board comments
we can do
for
that.
1275, just so that we take an action on the public hearing application?
Okay.
We table it.
Okay, so moved.
I'll second.
Kanauer,
Kanauer, aye.
Aken,
Aken, aye.
Daly,
Daly, aye.
McCooey,
McCooey, aye.
Tydings.
Tidings, aye.
Okay, moving into, we have one new business item. So this is one with a complicated-ish past. So back in 2019, the Penfield Planning Board granted approval for the first mixed-use development district, or first mixed-use development in Penfield, the Penfield Square development on Route 250. It's now 500 YMCA Way. So the original approval was for an independent living building, assisted living, and a memory care building, and 2 non-residential commercial buildings, and an undeveloped lot intended to also be commercial. Subsequent to that, the commercial lots were sold and developed in 2022. They came to the planning board for 100 and 300 YMCA Way. They received approval from the planning board at that point to allow for a mix of commercial and residential on the site, with commercial on the first floor and residential on the second and third floors.
Can I just interrupt there, Doug, for a
Yes.
sec? So like focusing on this original development, you had these 2 out parcels. They were both supposed to be 100% non-residential. And this is part of the, mixed-use district where you want to try to foster some commercial. There was an interpretation, because when they were subdivided off and sold, there was an interpretation, I think, by staff that because there was no, when we allowed the subdivision on the plat, we didn't restrict these properties to be 100% non-residential. So there was an interpretation that they could have up to 75% residential, I think, is what.
Yeah, I think it was 6 units in the front. And
4
9 units.
stories. The first story is supposed to be non-residential.
But
And-
that happened after they were sold.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so, because that would have been consistent with the density requirements for that part of the district, because in the most commercial intense Zone A, you need at least 20% non-residential, and this was going to be 25%. So without that restriction in place, it allowed them to come in and have it be only 25% non-residential. They now are coming to the zoning board to ask for relief from that requirement, and they want to have basically 100% variance to allow them to convert the first floor to residential units. And then it would be, this 100 YMCA Way would be.
This is specifically for the front building. The back building, they have a commercial tenant on the first floor. So they're only coming in to the zoning board for the front building.
So the zoning board is interested in knowing what your view of that might be. I mean, I have my own view, but
Are the 2 parcels the same owner?
yes.
Yes.
So the background is it was originally supposed to be all commercial. Now it's 25% commercial, and they want to go 100% residential. And so the zoning board is going to be faced with, they're going to have to look and see, all right, did they meet the burden to show that they're entitled to the variance, right? And part of that is, how long have they tried to market the property? What have they done to try to get commercial in there? And they're also going to have to weigh, how substantial is it, which it's substantial, but, they get to weigh all those factors. And so they're interested, as this board is really the one that is kind of running the show when it comes to mixed use. They're interested in any feedback you may have to them on that.
So the ZBA would have to see evidence for the variance,
Correct.
and it would have to be compelling enough for them to grant the variance. And I think for this board, it is clearly in a mixed-use district. So if you go by that being mixed-use zoning, at least at this point, unless they can show evidence and the ZBA is the decision maker, I'd say it's 100% on them, because we would like to see it continue as a mixed use.
And that can be
I think that can be
your
the
comment, yeah,
feedback, is
and that could be your comment to the zoning
unless
board.
unless you're, convinced that there's compelling proof, you'd like to see it continue to be a mix of uses on that property.
Yeah,
I mean, it is up to the zoning board, but.
right. But I think it's a dangerous, for us, it's a dangerous thing to agree to, and again, part of it is we haven't seen the evidence.
Pete, is it definitely an area variance?
Well, that is a question, because I think you can make an argument that it maybe could be a use variance.
Mike?
That was my argument.
You can make an argument that it could be a use variance, but I think the initial interpretation was that it is an area variance because it's so substantial, because it's really 100% variance in the percentage, does that make it a use variance?
I mean, that would transform the analysis.
So they ultimately applied for area variance from 250 5.12E1, which is the required mixture of uses that developments in this district shall provide a mix of uses located within the same project site and designed in an integral manner. Proposed developments must include a mix of residential and permitted and/or conditionally permitted non-residential uses. So they required an area variance from that. That was the interpretation of the zoning administrator. That wasn't a use variance. It was an area variance for the required mixture of uses.
But I think the zoning board is approaching it almost, with the seriousness of it being potentially really I think a use variance. But I mean, they're not looking at it as use variance, but it is significant enough that they were interested in knowing what we thought about it.
Okay.
Do we track the total mix of the mixed-use district between residential and commercial, or only like right at the property or parcel level?
So Doug can speak to this better than me, I think, but my sense is that there's very little actual non-residential that is actually active.
Mm-hmm.
You have the first floor of the 300 YMCA Way, but you also have some space that's in the assisted living that it was supposed to be non-residential, and I think that I don't know what they're doing with the space, but there's nothing that I'm aware of that's in there. And then in the arbors, they do have a proposal for, buildings that are non-residential. However, I don't know if there are any building permits for that type of space. So that's another issue which really probably cuts both ways is, once you kind of go down this slope, then is it going to become all apartments?
I have seen advertising. I know that at least the Arbors does have leasing information for their non-residential spaces. As Matt's pulled up, it's on that road near the cursor. Those buildings are the first set of non-residential mixed-use, vertical mixed-use buildings. There's another set that'll be on the other side that's part of a later phase.
With a lot of those, I think that businesses are going to wait until the area is fully built before they're actually making their way in there. I mean, that
maybe, yeah.
But at least for those ones, I know there's
standpoint.
leasing information out
Yeah.
there. I have been able to find the
Yes.
leasing information. I have not reached out to I believe it's Cabot Group that's advertising it, or CBRE that's advertising it. I have not found anything for the other property. And I
So
believe
the
that
zoning
would be-
board is going to take a hard look at it, but, I take what, if that's what you want the comment to be, we can convey that to them.
Yeah, I think if everyone's agreeable to that position,
Yeah, I'm agree. I would add some things to it. Like, I 100% agree, but like, to me too, like, I think if you look at the MUD district zoning regulations for this district, like, it addresses specifically parking and says that shared parking is required within all mixed-use developments, meaning, at least how I read that is, there's other places where people can park. not just these 13 spaces that they're saying need to be used solely by the residential
So
area.
the mixed-use code was updated in 2022 based on things we learned from the Penfield Square development, and we really made the mixed-use district a lot more robust than it had previously been. I believe there was supposed to be shared parking between the properties, and I believe there's a deed or covenant over the common areas. I might have Pete Weishaar take a look at it, trying to parse the legal language, essentially saying that each of the lots have some access to the common areas. I believe they define the common areas both as the grassy area and some of the parking area around that. But from my understanding, they're stating that they spoke with what was home leasing at the time, and because I believe that development has sold since, and they were offering parking on the west side in front of 300 YMCA Way, and the applicant's argument was that was too far away for his prospective tenants. So I believe they were offering them spaces there.
Yeah, so there may be an enforcement issue there.
But I don't know if that's an enforcement issue, and I tried to parse through the legal language, but it is like 12 pages of legalese that I was struggling to get through for restrictions and covenants between each of the lots independently and together for access and maintenance and monetary contributions for what they defined as common areas.
And I would add Steve's comment too about, questioning whether or not this ought to be considered a use variance. Just as a question for the zoning board. I mean, they can make their own determination about that.
So the three major topics I have for a potential short memo to the zoning board is that the planning board is still very supportive of non-residential uses occurring on site, that the planning board would ask the zoning board either to provide evidence of hardship or to request that of the...
Well, we don't need that.
To just request it of the applicant?
We don't need anything more.
Just request it from the applicant, or that it's...
Just saying they have to do the due diligence, which they
Okay,
would anyway.
that's a better framing.
Right. We haven't seen the evidence, so we're counting on the zoning board to take a hard look.
That's their job.
And questioning whether it should be considered a use variance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess back to the point, how could we even consider our opinion without the evidence to form an opinion on? So
Let's add that. That's a good way to frame it.
Yeah.
Can you state that again? So I can write it.
how could we form an opinion? That's what they're asking us
Yep.
for, but there is no evidence by which to make the opinion on other than just because they asked, and obviously that's not why we would make such an opinion.
We'd prefer it to be a mixture of uses as the code
Yeah,
intends.
and I did provide the zoning board materials in the drop. Again, I don't think there was, at least initially, a lot in there. Most of their evidence they provided was just stated in their letter of intent.
Okay, we good?
I don't believe we have to take a vote on sending a memo. I don't know if that's, I mean, it's belt and suspenders, we can.
I usually like to say, let's move to send the memo.
Move to send a memo?
Yep.
Kanauer.
I'll make them, I will move, and we need a second.
I'll second.
Kanauer? Oh, do we vote?
Aye.
Aken?
Aken, aye.
Daly?
Daly, aye.
McCooey?
McCooey, aye.
Tydings?
Tydings, aye.
Thank you.
Anything else, Doug, on the agenda?
That was everything we had on the agenda for the board.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thanks very much. And we will close this meeting.
you.